Boy, I was so thankful it was a quiet night. I had no interest in chasing down creatures or looking for potential hives. I kept the farm in sight as I kept changing my slow pattern around the area. I could see another night guard as he made his way around the buildings. I was surprised that he checked the doors on the barns as well. As I slowly banked around, I could see the herd sleeping, at least most of them. There was always seemed to be a bull or two awake, as though they expected trouble throughout the night. However, like I said, it was a quiet night. With my new night vision, I could see every bit of movement that was going on. There was no wind, so even shuffling of the distant possum or raccoon was heard, and I could easily see them. It must have been around midnight or so when I finally realized something. The vehicles were not where I had left them. Tightening my circle, I looked and I could see that they were strategically placed so they couldn't be seen from the road, but could be seen easily and accessed if trouble came knocking. Then it hit me. The box truck with most of our food was gone. What the fuck? I whispered to myself as I looked around for it. Could they have put it in the barn? Nah, I would have seen it. Besides, that would have been a waste of space for all the hay we needed to get through the winter. So, what the hell happened while I was asleep? The question was enough to keep my senses on high alert all night long. In fact, I found myself constantly looking for dawn so I could ask everyone what the hell had happened. As the sun broke the horizon, I made my way to the ground, and as I came to a landing, I could see the ladies making breakfast as the kids were making their way over to the main house for the same breakfast. I tried to land easy, but I was in far too much of a rush to care, so I ended up scaring the young ones when I touched down. I looked the night guard in the eye and said, "Okay, just tell me, what the fuck happened while I was asleep?" Shocked at my question, he just looked at me for a moment before ushering the children inside. I could see by his body language that he was going to let me know, though the overnight adult from the kid's house came over and pulled me to the side. From there, the night guard came over and they began to explain what had happened. When I passed out, everyone was on edge due to being in a new place, plus all the excitement on the way here, of course. The next day, they spent most of the day getting all the supplies squared away and reorganizing so that everyone had a share of the supplies like blankets and beds. This also came with the distribution of weapons and ammo to make sure everyone remained safe. They would have liked my help, but every time they tried to wake me, they would hear my bones cracking as my body healed itself. The next night was quiet, but the next morning was something else. Apparently, they had followed the smell of the fire to the farm and noticed the new vehicles. They were a group of surviving humans that were traveling across the area looking for resources, also known as Marauders. At first, they seemed friendly enough, but there was something off about their mannerisms. It wasn't until they saw the feline couple come out of the small house. This made the group immediately draw on the cats. This prompted everyone to reach for their weapons, and there was a standoff. With this, the kitty couple dove back into their house for cover, and the arriving group leader informed my people that they had set a sniper up before they arrived. With the wave of his hand, the sniper shot hit a potted plant next to the porch, leaving everyone to know he wasn't kidding around. They forced everyone to drop their weapons before continuing. While holding their weapons on my people, they checked out the vehicles and found the box truck that was still 25% full of food. With this, they seemed more than content as they climbed in and got ready to take our supplies. As they did, my two dolls were seen and told to come outside. When they did, one of the men held up his rifle and forced them to remove their sleeping attire, which were just some long shirts. Hearing this, my blood began to boil as I started looking around for where they might have gone. The two men continued the story with one of the females of the marauding group got the man under control and they got into the truck and began to drive away. They stopped just at the end of the driveway in order to let the sniper jump onto the side. Unfortunately for him, he didn't get very far. Screaming could be heard from the other side of the road, just as everyone looked on as something that looked like an oversized Wolverine started ripping the sniper apart. With sheer ferocity, it thrashed with the person in its mouth, ripping the leg clean off. As he screamed in pain, the Wolverine went back and got a hold of the person's torso. With a sickening crunch of bones, the screaming stopped. Several of those hanging onto the truck ran up and began to pump bullets into this badger or Wolverine or whatever the hell it was. Though strong, it wasn't very fast, nor could it withstand the onslaught of brass and lead that came its way. Before leaving, they dropped a grenade on it that burst and set the carcass of the creature on fire. At this point, my group had recovered what weapons they could and were running across the front lawn. The driver saw this and fired a few shots before slamming on the gas. The rest of the group running hard to catch the truck, but found that much were surprised. Out of the wood came my three mollies, and they were pissed. With nearly mechanical precision, they jumped on members of the marauding group and ripped their necks clean open. As soon as the blood shot out, they jumped onto the next one, not even making sure the kill was successful. Since they were running to the truck, they didn't see what was going on behind them. Each one was taken down before they screamed loud enough to alert the ones in the truck in front of them. This must have truly spooked the driver because he noticed and floored it, slamming the accelerator in an attempt to get away. It didn't take long until he was out of sight. Everyone in my group said they were cursing as they had just lost 3 months' worth of food when the oldest of the children spoke up. Apparently, the road he was going down was not exactly conducive to high speeds, especially high speeds with a vehicle that was top heavy like that. It didn't take more than another 30 seconds, they said, as they could hear tires squeal and the sounds of the truck crashing hard. By the time they had gotten there, the driver had pulled himself out, but was not in very good condition. However, he was in good enough condition to fire his pistol. Thankfully, he was a bad shot. One of the men from our side made short work of the driver, and our supplies were recovered, at least most of them. The crash had not only destroyed the truck, but had also destroyed about 10% of the current contents inside. It would take the rest of the day to get everything back to the farm, sorted out and stocked. The Mollies and the kitty couple took care of the leftover humans since they had worked up a appetite anyway. The Tomcat had joined the counterattack as the truck sped away, so less to worry about. What was left of the Wolverine was not even worth trying to salvage. As it turns out, the incinerator device they used to burn it was a white phosphorus grenade. Not only did it smell horrible, but it was now inedible. So they just left it. What they didn't leave were the bags the snipers, yes, plural, as it turned out, there was a sniper and a spotter, were dragging to the truck. Turns out they were much better supplied than we had thought. Inside, they found more weapons and ammunition along with a bunch of survival gear. The only thing they were missing was provisions, or simple food, if you will. Hunger will make you do some desperate things, I guess. If I had to guess, they were going to wait until they found out where all our supplies were and then raid us, but just try and take over a place by force once they got in. I had a different perspective. Since they didn't get jumpy until they saw the kitty couple, it is possible. They just wanted to join a stable group of humans. This thought made us all think twice, since everyone was just trying to survive in this world. It made us all long for the days where the worst thing we had to deal with were those shitty politicians with a fake smile. The fact that everyone made it out of the entire ordeal in one piece was enough to calm me down. Confirming that was the reason why the new layout of vehicles, I could rest easy that everything was all right. I went in and immediately found my two dolls and held them tight. I know their minds are just far too gone to realize what the guy was actually interested in doing to them, but that doesn't stop me from caring. While we ate breakfast, they filled me in on all the work they had been doing in the past 2 weeks while my body recovered. Mostly getting the equipment running and getting ready for the winter. All felines had been focusing on foraging what they can, so everything was coming into season. The ladies have been inside preserving what is brought, along with making sure meals are taken care of and children receive their lessons. Yes, even in this type of world, you still need some semblance of education. The men spent their days working on the equipment and in the fields, mainly of the fields that had been planted before all this kicked off, so it was time to get ready for the harvest. Along with that, taking care of the animals was high on the priority list since there wasn't going to be much game anymore, not anything we could really hunt. I could fish some more, but that was it. The way we figured, 3 of the cows would feed our group for about a year, so we had to make sure the herd was able to make it through the winter. Even though there would be more calves born than cows lost, it's a good thing to hedge your bets in this type of situation, especially since you never know what might be coming. As for what I would be doing, well, I already figured. I would help them stock up with fish so that we wouldn't have to worry about slaughtering any of the cattle anytime soon. This will be a very lonely job since I can't carry the fish, along with a passenger, that is, back and forth, though I didn't mind much since they had actually protected me and my women during that whole botched raid against the farm. This seemed like at least the least I can do, right? Late that night, I was gliding through the air on my patrol when I noticed something in the distance. It was a slight flashing light of an aircraft. When I looked closer, I could see that there were several of them. As I watched them slowly move across the night sky, I suddenly saw the ground beneath them light up. The burst of orange and yellow made me have to turn my head a bit as it lit up the underbelly of the aircraft. I only know one thing that lights up the ground like that. Those planes were dropping napalm, or something of its equivalent. And whatever they were dropping on, it was something big. Given the amount they used, it would have to wager that they just burned up a big bug nest. I thought to myself, hope the survivors, if there are any, don't come this way. As I continued my patrol, I watched that side of the farm very closely for the rest of the night. I didn't see anything at all that night, so I figured we should be good. It was about 3 days later, on a run to get more fish, when I saw them. A group moving through the trees, not seeming to care how noticeable they were. They were headed in the direction of the farm, but they continued on their path. They might miss it entirely. So I took a break from my runs of fish and watched them. They didn't seem to be carrying much, which was strange for a group that was mostly humans. From what I could see, there was 5 humans, 3 of which were children, 2 lizard types, 3 canine-ish types, and a single, what do they used to call those? Lamias? That seemed to be moving very slow for their size. I recognized them, of course, but I hesitated to bring them back to the farm. Resources were tight as it is, and feeding a group that large, something even as large as a Lamia, it's going to put a severe strain on our ability to survive. Though I can't just leave them. They're they're running from something. Gliding down, I landed about 50 meters in front of them, not hiding at all so they would see me clearly. The lizard females noticed me right away and got big grins on their faces. They called out to me, and I waved them over. The humans took a second to recognize me, but the wings kind of gave me away. The Lamia got defensive and made herself stand much, much taller than me. I'll admit that did put me on edge a bit, since last time I saw them, I kind of clawed her scales to get away. I'll admit she still looked nice, since she still, didn't wear clothes. But then again, neither did the lizard females, except for some strange loincloths. The humans looked far worse for wear, as their clothing looked worn and they looked totally freaking spent. I introduced myself and asked them where they were going and doing so far away from where they were. As it turned out, the military had started torching any place they thought were concentrations of what they considered monsters. The apartment complex I had been was now just a smoldering parking lot. To make sure that they were not next, they ran and as they heard the aircraft overhead. Even though there was no ordnance drop, they still ran just in case. After asking what happened to the rest of their group, it turned out they ran into one of those bearish things, the ones that ambushed us before. It tore into their group and took out several before beginning to feed on those it took out. These were the last survivors, and that just broke my heart a little. They began to probe me with questions, most of which I couldn't answer without risking the farm and all its inhabitants, but I could tell them where they could get food and water. I showed them the river teeming with fish. It didn't take long before the lizards were scooping out at least one big fish with each swipe of their talons. I knew that if they followed the river, they should come up to a house or two. With luck, they should be able to hunker down for a while. They thanked me profusely before I grabbed my next batch of fish and took to the skies. I made sure to head off in a direction that did not lead them to the farm, just in case. Though I felt a little like an asshole for not taking them directly in, it isn't just my call. I would have to talk this over the group, but I had a feeling they would be thinking the same thing I was. Until we were established, bringing anyone else into our group was a very risky venture. When I got back, I told the group about what happened. One of the ladies speculated that our old homestead, or what I used to call the lair, got infested with something, and that's why they took it out and melted it down to the ground. I sure hope that is true, or else I just painted a target on our asses. It would be several days before I saw that one of the houses down the river had smoke coming from the chimney. At least they had a place to set up, but I wondered how they would be able to stock up for the future. It wasn't within my control, really, but I couldn't do anything, so I just kept on my work. This meant that it would only be another week before the fish run was over. Maybe sooner, maybe a little later, I wasn't sure, so I had to keep going. Though boring, I knew it had to be better than starving, that was for sure. Right around that time, the fishing was just done. The felines actually showed up with something much better than berries. Somehow, they had located and captured 7 chickens, including 2 roosters, which meant within a year we would be nearly enough of eggs to subsist on. We did throw a party that night to celebrate, and it was actually difficult to fly due to the fact that my stomach was so full, the first time that's ever happened. As I did fly my patrol, I thought about how good things were going, and it makes me a little nervous when things go that well. I know how dangerous complacency can be, so I have to be on my game still at all times, especially when I can see movement on the horizon. In fact, I see a lot of movement. What is that? Oh, that. Okay, my eyes have to be playing tricks on me. A mountain can't move. Maybe I'm just getting tired, I don't know. But for right now, all I care about is what's sitting back in that house. 'Cause there's no place like home, man. And since we're all making our way in this world, living on this farm with those that we've collected over time and those who were here before, it just reminds me that country folks can survive. End of chapter 1.